Well, welcome everyone to the Be Awesome Network. I'm super excited to be chatting with Maggie Sarfo today. Maggie, how are you today?
I'm very well, Laurie. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, well, we were just chatting about some exciting stuff going on in your world. So, why don't you tell us where in the world are you coming to us from? And then what have you been up to lately?
Thank you, Laurie. So I'm based in London in the UK. I live in a place called Wokingham, which is just outside London. So for most people, I'll say London. And I, yeah, and what has been happening recently has been the launch. A lot of things have been happening, but the launch of a new book that I have published on Amazon is the most exciting thing that's been happening. It literally went live today for public release. And so it feels like this is perfect timing. So thank you, Laurie. And the title of the book is The One Secret to Happiness.
I love that. So, yeah, we were talking about what you do, what you're all about, and how you help
Mhm,
people. But let's take it back just a little bit further and tell
mhm.
us why you got into what you're doing. What is your story?
Thank you. So what I normally say that is that if you asked me a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago, that I would be where I am doing what I am doing now, I would have said to you, you having a laugh. No, I'm not that kind of person. But what had happened is, so I have a background in business consulting and then sales and sales leadership. So I had my fair share of working in the corporate world. And then at one point, one morning, as I was coming out of my meditation, all I could hear was the sound Akasha ringing in my ears. And I was like, what is it? Why is it ringing? Why would it not stop? And one thing led to the other for me to discover what is called the Akashic Records. It's also called the etheric records, and it's found in almost any and every, I'll say, spiritual practice. For instance, in the Bible, the Akashic records or the etheric records is called the Book of Life. So information about us as individuals, souls, from the time we come into being until the time we're no longer there. So the Akashic, and also information about the universe. And the concept is that information about us, in terms of soul level information, is recorded in our DNA. And so, sometimes when we come into situations in life where we feel we need a deeper answer to what we're experiencing, if we are able to tap into this information or this wisdom within our own DNA, it does allow us the grace and the understanding and the suggestions in terms of what we can do to then move forward in confidence and experience life in a happier way. So that's what the Akashic Records is about on a personal level. And then, of course, on the wider level, I do like business Akashic Records as well. So long as a business has been trading, then it starts to record its own records, in which case we can also tap into it and help bring inspirational information to be able to move forward with what we're looking to expect or we're looking to create within the business and bring more impact into the world as well. So since that time, when I heard this sound ringing in my ears, I picked up my phone and all I could see was 333, and I was like, what's going on? What does this mean? I go to Amazon, I Googled and then realized that Akasha is related to the Akashic Records. I bought a book online, and then by reading that book, understanding what the Akashic Records concept is, and then there was a prayer in the book that I used, and then I was able to start accessing my own Akashic Records, so to speak, and downloading information. And then I carried on, exploring that more. I came across a guy who lives in Miami. I know, Laurie, you're currently in Florida. So I came across a guy who lives in Miami, a Mexican shaman who had been working with the Akashic Records for about 25 years at that time. And he had a school, or he has a school that helps people to access their own Akashic Records, or at least learn to do that. And so that's how I went to Guatemala and got certified as a level 3 Akashic Records consultant. So I added that to my business experience and my people development experience. And so then I came out of my corporate roles and then set up my business back in 2016. And then, this experience was happening between 2016 and 2017. So by 2018, my business became a business and personal growth mentoring firm instead of just a business growth firm. So that's the origins of how I came to be who I am now. And I cannot be even more excited from that perspective that I've shared some of these stories as well as experiences with people, and how this work continues to enrich our lives, and how we all have that capacity within us to tap into ourselves, tap into what I call our core blueprint, and bring more of us into the world for our own happiness and to impact others in a positive way as well.
Whoops. I love that. That is beautiful. And I'm curious because I've heard of, through neuroscience and through
Yes.
For example, if I am pregnant and I am experiencing high stress levels for something, a situation in my life, then I'm passing that stress down, and the beliefs and the thoughts and those kind of patterns into the baby that is forming within me. And so we all have that kind of imprint from where we came from, and we're pretty much born with some of these default modes, right?
Yes,
so
we do. Yeah.
so I'm curious, how do you find out what those are? Because a lot of those are subconscious that we don't really recognize.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always say that it's probably not important if it's not impacting your life. But what I find is people come into a session to access their records, and they are asking a question which is real to them at the moment, in terms of, I'm having issues with this, right? What are my solutions? What is the root cause of this problem? What are my resources to resolve it? And then if the solution, or if the root cause of it is during the conception stage, then the information comes out that this is actually from, you as a fetus in your mother's womb, and this is where the actual root cause of this issue is. And sometimes it's that understanding that is important for us to know. I feel that when people are in that presence within their own Akashic records, they are calibrated to a very higher energetic space within themselves. And sometimes some of these things can be resolved as well. Otherwise, they get given suggestions in terms of how they can resolve these issues. Similarly, if the issue they're facing is, within the earlier childhood years, then it will come up to say, it's from these, and you maybe need to do some inner child work. But yeah, no, the conception to birth period is something that I find very fascinating, but it happens all the time. And then other times it could be even a past life incident. So a lifetime before this one where you had experienced something, and it's followed you because it got stuck in your DNA, it's followed you into this lifetime. And whereas it may have served you at that time, it's no longer, serving you now. And so, yeah, so that's what happens. And like I say, if it's not bothering you, there's no point you going and poking around and say, who was I in the past? And what was happening when I was in my mother's womb? But normally, if it's bothering you, then when you come into your records to find answers to what is going on, then it will be brought up as the root cause. And in a very loving way, you will be directed to resolve it as well.
Yeah. So what does that look like, the resolution? What does that look like when you're working with clients?
So various ways. So for instance, the incident that you described, if it's a situation where, so for instance, let's say like there is an energy, for instance, let's say it's an energy of fear and anxiety that has been passed on to a baby in the womb, right? So once the information is revealed during the session, you know, through that there is also the suggestion on how to resolve it. And an example could be that they need to it could be anything, but what I find is that if, for instance, is a soul level contract between them and the mum somehow, because they've had a lifetime of kind of that anxiety relationship, and so they've repeated it now, then it could be that if they have learned their lessons from those kind of things, it could be a case of it's if you're happy with it, now is the time for you to release that contract so you can live a happier life without this anxiety thing hanging over you. And then I, I may be guided to say to them, if you have someone who can direct support you with it, you can go and see them. Otherwise, if you want to work with me, we can have a mentoring session. And so I do some of these mentoring sessions where I guide people through a meditative state where they can picture themselves through that process of when they were in their mother's womb and release it that way. Other times, it could be a case of writing a letter to release that old soul contract and writing a new one, like a new vision letter, a new vision board of how you'd like your life to be moving forward. And that can also resolve it. It's all the energy attached to what we're doing. And then, it sometimes is, if it's inner child healing work, it could be a period of 3 sessions or something like that. But yeah, so there are different forms depending on what comes up for people. I would say that in some instances, that understanding that this is the root cause of it can also resolve it, because when people come into that higher vibrational space within the Akashic Records, is sometimes their higher self guiding them into that space, and the healing can also happen instantaneously without any practical stuff needing to be done after that as well. Yeah. And I wouldn't take any credit for those either.
Yeah, I'm sure. You see yourself as kind of a guide, like you said, a guide, and
Yeah,
and
I know.
which could also be defined as a friend,
Yes. So I think it's a very rewarding piece of work to be able to hold space for people to access who they really are in connection with, their divine or God or whatever, word they want to use. But to come into this higher vibrational space within themselves and resolve issues, because we're meant to have extraordinary experiences in life, basically. So yeah. And I feel that in all these cases, I'm kind of an empty channel, so I can hold space for them to be able to resolve these things and be an empty channel for someone else who comes in as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You said we are meant to have an extraordinary experience in life.
Yes. Yeah. We are. We are. Sometimes it's not that easy to believe when we look at day-to-day reality of challenges, but at the core of it all, we are, as a lot of people say, we are spiritual beings and we are meant to have an extraordinary human experience. And these experiences help us really come into that space of understanding that in all of it all, we are perfection. And when we are able to come into what I would sometimes call our I am presence, which is, the source of who we are, we can bring things back to where we are. And sometimes we need to go on a journey to get there, but it doesn't mean that we are not this extraordinary person meant to have an extraordinary life. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very inspiring. And I hope that people who are listening are hearing this and understanding that that is for them too. It's for everyone, right? This
Oh
is
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So can we talk just a little bit about maybe your history of growing up and what
Yeah.
kind of sparked this interest
Hmm.
that you have? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I every time I get these interviews, I'm ever so grateful because I feel that it does help me think back and connect the dots for myself as well. So, growing up, I would say I had a normal childhood, I would say, but what does normal mean, right? But one thing I would say in connection to the conversation we're having at the moment is the fact that some of my friends pointed out that I had quite grown up friends, and I didn't realize that. But if I look at it, I actually did. I had some friends who were like maybe 7 years older, 10 years older, and they will just have a chat with me, and I thought it was normal just to have grown up friends, all the time. But what had been happening is they will sometimes say something which was a problem for them, and I'll say something back, and they will say, the next time they meet me, they will go, oh, that thing you said, that actually resolved my problem. And I'm like, what did I say? Because I didn't think I was saying anything profound per se. So I feel that people naturally are drawn to me to share, problems with me because somehow they feel that they can trust me or they can divulge things to me. And somehow I feel that I'm able to say something that could help resolve. But I would say I never saw myself as any special or any different from anyone else growing up at all until this incident back in 2016 that I described. But what I will say is, I always felt that we have the ability to create what we want to create in our lives within ourselves. And of course, in connection with the divine and the higher self within us, and God or whatever I am presence or whatever you want to use, or the universe, any word that works for you is what we're referring to here. So, but as I was growing up, I found that any kind of job, any kind of work that allowed me to talk and advise people was incredibly fulfilling for me. And I felt that, and then when I realized that you can speak and you can talk and you can get paid for it, imagine my excitement. I was like, I can talk and get paid for it. So I remember times in my teenage years where, I'll say to some parents, I can teach your kid, if you pay me something. I have always been very entrepreneurial from that perspective as well. And then, if I look back at, the kind of roles that I chose, being able to do like business consulting and advisory, and even when I took on sales roles, I was that kind of salesperson that would say to a client that if I can't add value to you and your business, I would not be comfortable to ask you to become a client of mine, because I saw that the fulfillment of what I did was being able to say, actually, go ahead and buy this product or service and it will help you, resolve this problem. And being able to stay around for much longer to come back and see the impact of that advice I gave them was always the fulfillment that I got in what I did. And even right now, I think that theme has carried on. And so I feel, and I talk a lot about purpose, and I feel that purpose is always there. The core purpose within us is always there. We never really lose it. And if we're losing it, there will be a knock on our heart and we'll find it. But I also feel that purpose evolves over time. So for me, it could be that love for just naturally saying something to people that impacts them in a positive way is what has guided me throughout life. And perhaps, that experience of waking up with Akasha in my ears as a sound was a next level of that purpose. And even now, with me being able to birth this beautiful book into the world, I hope the readers will think it is, and it will help them, in whatever way they want to experience their happiness. I think it's about that. It's about just, putting one foot in front of the other and then checking in within yourself to see if it feels right, and if it doesn't feel right, what doesn't feel right? Why does it not feel right? What else can you do that makes it feel right for you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's amazing. I love that that you were kind of already gifted with the ability to speak into people's worlds, and that they
Mm,
trust you. That's
mm,
important.
yeah, yeah. I think we all are gifted in in some way. Um, I know that we separate some gifts from others, but I think everyone is gifted. But maybe not everyone will agree with me, but I think we all are. And
I
thank you.
agree. I agree with that. I agree with that because we've got people who are very creative. We've got people who are
Yeah,
very
yeah,
logical. We've got
yeah,
so many different kinds, and it
yeah,
takes all of us to
yeah. Yeah,
make.
and a great mother is incredibly gifted, right? And I think every gift is a beautiful gift, and so it's why I describe purpose as our way of being. Is who we are being, and it doesn't matter. It's not necessarily what we do. Sometimes it is. Other times it's what we are doing. Some people just have to be in the presence of other people, and they can impact other people. And people who come into my practice, for instance, they would, there are people that they ask questions about their purpose, and the answer could be, your presence is what make people peaceful, right? And some of these people, you'll find them in places like care work and things like that. And sometimes they think it's the training and what they're giving to people. It is in a way, but it's because the core of their essence is their peaceful presence that heals people, and that's what guides them into what they do.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Mm.
That's really cool. Okay, so can we talk just a few minutes about your book and what the secret is? Because you've teased us with the secret.
Thank you. So the book, as I said again, is The One Secret to Happiness. No matter where you are, if you Google on Amazon, it will come up. Over time, it will go onto the other platforms and bookshops as well. But The One Secret to Happiness is what you're looking for. It's born out of, I will say this book has been a labor of love. It's been a co-creation with the people whom I love and are close to me, as well as my clients, because at some point I felt that there were certain things that I would say in sessions, and I thought it was kind of commonplace and everyone knew how to do it, and they will look at me as if they don't know what I'm talking about. And so I felt, oh, maybe I need to hold people's hands a bit more. So it's born out of that. It's also born out of my own personal stories as well as stories from our clients. And I talk about the importance of watching and making sure that we are not consistently imbalanced in our lives. And it's about connecting with all the four aspects of ourselves in a balanced way. So by that I mean the mental side of us, the emotional side of us, the physical, as well as the spiritual side of us. And I feel that true happiness comes from that, our ability to connect with all the four aspects. And when we are not, then you will find that a part of your life is lopsided. Perhaps your work and business may be going really well, but perhaps your relationships with people who are close to you, it's not as you want them to be, or as can be, and all of those things. So I feel that as we bring all four aspects of the self into balance, that is where the true happiness comes from. So the book is all about enabling people in a very, very practical way. I just lay it out from step by step to really just sit and ask themselves, where am I on my emotional level? And then trust that they will receive answers around where they are on a scale from 1 to 10, and then move on and see what it takes for them to, in a way, heal, if that's the appropriate word for you, or just bring yourself into full calibration back to what I call your 0 point of consciousness. That is the happiest place. That's the 0 place of balance. The quantum science people will tell you that we all came from that zero place of consciousness, which is zero. And when you're there, that is where you start to manifest and create the biggest things in your life. That's where your happiness sits as well. So the book is all about that, bringing yourself back to that zero place, your happiest point of happiness, and making sure this applies to all the four aspects of your life as well.
Wonderful. Wow. Okay. Well,
It's not all serious. There is fun stuff about it, you know.
yes,
So
yes,
yeah.
yes. Well, getting to a good place in life is fun. The journey
Mm,
there is not always easy, but it is fun once you can
it
get to
is.
that place,
It
right?
is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
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 So if people want to reach out and talk to you, how can they do that?
So you can contact me at maggiesarfo.com, or my other website, where you can also look at both my business and personal growth work, is merisconsult.com. So MERES consult.com, and that will show you both my business and personal growth work as well. And of course, if you want to grab a copy of the book, then if you go into Amazon, no matter which country you are, and then just type in the one secret to happiness, it will come up. I'm happy to share some links with you as well, Laurie.
Yes, yes. I was just going to say what we can do is after the interview, I'll tag you on the post and you can
Mhm.
add to the comment section all your links and how to
Wonderful.
reach you. So thank you, Maggie, so much for being on the
Thank
Be
you.
Awesome Network. You are awesome, and I am
Thank you.
so glad that we got a chance to connect. Do you have any last and closing thoughts for our audience?
Um, uh, all I will say is and I'll quote part of the poem by Marianne Williamson that says, our biggest fear is not because we are inadequate. Our biggest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. So every time you feel like you want to do something, you want to become your happiest version, and you feel that something is standing in your way of being that, just remember that that fear is not because you can't reach your own levels of happiness. It is because you don't want that bright light to shine. So allow that bright light in you to shine. We all have it. And the more we can allow that to happen, we will be in our best place, the best place that we alone can dream of. And it doesn't have to be what someone else thinks it needs to be. You alone know what happiness means to you.
I love that. That is one of my favorite quotes. And what a beautiful way to end our time together. Thank you so much, Maggie, for being
Thank you,
with
Laurie.
us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, of course. Okay. And if you are watching right now, or if you're watching the replay and you want to connect with the Maggie, please check the comments so that you can do that. And then I just want to remind you guys that you are awesome, like Maggie so beautifully expressed, and we can be awesome together. And that's what we're all about. And that's what this group is all about. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here, Maggie. And thank you guys for watching. And we will
Thank
see
you,
you guys
Laurie.
next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, perfect.